Welcome back, deep divers. Ready for another plunge into history?
Always ready. Where are we headed today?
Well, strap yourselves in because we're traveling back to the 10th and 11th centuries. We're talking about a pivotal figure, especially for those prepping for the UPSC exams.
Sounds intriguing.
Absolutely. We're diving deep into the life and legacy of none other than Mahmud of Ghazni.
Ah, Mahmud of Ghazni.
Yep.
His campaigns had a profound impact on the Indian subcontinent.
Exactly. And we're not just skimming the surface here. We're going to explore his conquests, his motivations, but also a surprising cultural side to this often portrayed warrior king.
That cultural angle is often overlooked. I'm looking forward to unpacking that.
Me too. But before we get started, a quick reminder to our listeners. Hit that like button if you're enjoying our deep dives, subscribe to our channel, and click that bell icon so you don't miss out on our future explorations.
A must for any history enthusiast.
Absolutely. Okay, let's set the scene. Picture the Indian subcontinent in the year 1000 AD. A powerful ruler from Ghazni, that's present-day Afghanistan, is about to launch a series of campaigns that will reshape the course of Indian history. That ruler, of course, is Mahmud of Ghazni. But to really understand his impact, we need to go back to his roots.
And his roots are, shall we say, a bit unexpected for a ruler of his stature. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, so to speak.
Not exactly born into royalty.
Right. His father, Sebüktigin, was a Turkish slave commander who rose through the ranks, eventually establishing the Ghaznavid dynasty.
Wow, so Mahmud inherited this legacy of ambition. He was born into a kingdom strategically located right on the edge of the Indian subcontinent.
A kingdom ripe with potential, and Mahmud, it seems, was eager to tap into that potential.
So it sounds like this wasn't just a case of being in the right place at the right time. He had ambition in his blood. But what specifically pushed him to turn his attention toward India?
Well, India at that time was famous for its wealth.
Right. It wasn't called the Golden Bird for nothing.
Exactly. And we're not talking just about natural resources. We're talking about prosperous kingdoms, especially in the northwest, places like Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat.
These were the heartland of several powerful kingdoms.
Precisely. And these kingdoms were known for their opulent temples, flourishing trade, and, well, that made them attractive targets for an ambitious ruler like Mahmud, someone looking to expand his power and, of course, fill his coffers.
So in a way, it was India's riches that acted as a magnet, pulling Mahmud towards the subcontinent.
You could say that. The allure of wealth was a powerful motivator. And this wasn't just a one-time raid, a quick grab and go. We're talking about a series of 17 invasions.
17. That's incredible.
Yes, 17 invasions, each one with its own objectives and impact.
I can only imagine the impact of that kind of military campaign over such a short period. But with 17 invasions, were there any that particularly stand out? Maybe some turning points in his campaign?
Oh, absolutely. His very first foray into India in 1001 AD marked a significant victory. He defeated the Hindu Shahi king Jayapala in a battle fought in present-day Afghanistan and Pakistan.
So that was his first taste of victory on Indian soil.
Yes, and it was a taste of the potential riches that India held. This victory fueled his desire for more.
That makes sense. 17 is a lot to keep track of, though. Any other key invasions?
Without a doubt, the invasion of Somnath in 1025 AD stands out. It's a pivotal moment in Mahmud's story, and it had a lasting impact on how he's remembered.
Somnath, that name rings a bell.
The Somnath Temple, located in Gujarat, was legendary for its wealth and religious significance. It was a symbol of prosperity and faith.
So when Mahmud attacked this temple,
It sent shockwaves throughout India. The destruction, the plundering of its treasures, it became a defining event in Mahmud's legacy, one that's etched in historical memory.
it's clear that those 17 invasions left a deep mark on India. We can't just gloss over that impact. What were the long-term consequences?
Well, for one, Mahmud's campaigns exposed the weaknesses of the Rajput kingdoms that dominated much of north and western India at the time.
These were kingdoms known for their bravery and military skill. What were their weaknesses?
They were fierce warriors, no doubt, but they lacked unity. They were often engaged in conflicts amongst themselves, which Mahmud exploited expertly.
So their own internal divisions made them vulnerable.
Exactly. He'd conquer one kingdom, move on to the next, and often by the time they realized they needed to band together, it was too late.
A classic case of united we stand, divided we fall. And unfortunately, the consequences of that fall were significant for India.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about losing battles. Mahmud's conquests drained India of its wealth, weakened its defenses, and ultimately opened the door for future invasions.
So it's like he set off a chain reaction that would ripple through Indian history for centuries to come.
Precisely. His invasions had a ripple effect, paving the way for other Muslim rulers from Central Asia to make inroads into the Indian subcontinent. But it's not just about the military and political impact. There's also a surprising cultural dimension to Mahmud's story, one that often gets overlooked.
Hold on, cultural impact. I thought we were talking about invasions and plunder. How does that fit in?
It might seem counterintuitive, but Mahmud was a man of contradictions. He was ruthless in his conquests, no doubt, but he was also a patron of art, literature, and scholarship.
It's not what you typically expect from a conqueror.
I know. His court in Ghazni became a melting pot of brilliant minds. He attracted prominent figures like Ferdowsi, the author of the epic Persian poem Shahnameh.
So while he was busy raiding and conquering, he was also supporting the arts.
Exactly. And this patronage wasn't just for show. He seemed to genuinely have an intellectual curiosity. He desired to foster a vibrant cultural scene in his capital. And this created a unique environment. Despite the violence and destruction of war, there was this flourishing of knowledge and cultural exchange between the Islamic world and India.
This is already blowing my mind. I thought we were going to talk about a straightforward conqueror. It's clear that Mahmud was a much more complex figure.
He certainly was, and that complexity is what makes studying history so intriguing. There are always layers to uncover, different perspectives to consider. And in Mahmud's case, we see this fascinating interplay of conquest, destruction, and cultural exchange.
It's a reminder that history is rarely black and white. It's full of shades of gray. I'm already starting to see Mahmud of Ghazni in a new light, but I have a feeling there's even more to uncover.
Oh, there's definitely more. And that's what we'll be diving into after a short break. We'll explore the specifics of this cultural exchange, the impact of Mahmud's patronage, and the lasting legacy he left behind.
We've been talking about these 17 invasions, Mahmud's conquests in India and the impact they had. I'm curious, though, how did the Indian kingdoms at that time respond to these invasions? Was there any kind of organized resistance?
That's a really good question. And it's a complex answer. You see, while there are certainly pockets of very fierce resistance, the Indian kingdoms, unfortunately, lacked unity, and that ultimately hindered their ability to effectively counter Mahmud's forces.
So that disunity we talked about earlier, it really came back to bite them.
It did. Mahmud, he was a brilliant military strategist, remember, and he expertly exploited those divisions.
Yeah, he was playing chess while they were playing checkers, it sounds like.
Pretty much. Conquer one kingdom, move on to the next, and by the time they realized, hey, we need to band together here, it was often too late.
It almost sounds like a Greek tragedy, knowing that they had the strength, they had the ability to resist, but falling short because of these internal conflicts. Were there any instances where they actually managed to put up a united front?
Yeah, there were a few notable exceptions. Anandapala, the son of Jayapala, the King Mahmud, defeated in his first invasion.
Oh, right.
He put up a really valiant resistance, even forging alliances with neighboring rulers.
So they realized the need to join forces.
They did, but these alliances, they were often short-lived. Mahmud, he just had superior tactics and resources. He usually prevailed.
It's almost like a historical example of that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And in this case, the Indian kingdoms really needed to go far to withstand those persistent campaigns from Mahmud.
They did. But while the military and political aspects of Mahmud's invasions are, they're crucial to understanding this period, I think it's also important to delve a little bit deeper into the cultural exchange that was happening in the midst of all this conflict.
Right. Earlier, we talked about Mahmud's court being this hub for scholars and artists. That still seems kind of counterintuitive to me, a conqueror fostering this cultural renaissance.
It does, doesn't it? But that's what makes Mahmud such a fascinating historical figure. He kind of defies easy categorization.
He's more than just a one-dimensional conqueror.
Exactly. A complex individual with seemingly contradictory impulses.
Yeah. Driven by conquest, the acquisition of wealth, but he also seems to have genuinely appreciated knowledge. He surrounds himself with some of the brightest minds of the time.
He does.
So it makes me wonder, did this cultural patronage stem from a genuine love for knowledge? Or was it a calculated move to enhance his image, kind of legitimize his rule?
That's a debate historians continue to have today.
That's a good question.
Some argue that Mahmud's patronage was a strategic way to project this image, to be seen as this refined, sophisticated ruler, a patron of the arts, not just a ruthless warrior.
Right, so kind of soften his image of him.
Exactly. It would have helped consolidate his power, maybe appease those he conquered.
Almost like a soft power strategy.
You could call it that. But others believe that Mahmud had a genuine intellectual curiosity, a real desire to create a center of learning and culture in Ghazni.
So we've got evidence to support both sides.
We do, and it's likely a combination of factors, really. But regardless of his motivations, the impact of his patronage was undeniable. His court became this meeting point for scholars from all across the Islamic world.
Right. We mentioned Firdausi.
Yeah, and another figure who was drawn to Mahmud's court was al-Biruni, a renowned polymath from Central Asia. Al-Biruni traveled to India with Mahmud's army, and while he was there, he produced this remarkable work. It's called Kitabul Hind. It's a really detailed account of Indian society, culture, and knowledge.
Wow, so even though he arrived in India as part of an invading force, he actually ended up documenting Indian culture in a way that's been so valuable to historians.
Exactly. Al-Biruni's work, it's just one example of the intellectual and cultural exchange that was happening during this period. Persian literary traditions started influencing Indian writers. Artistic styles blended, created new forms of expression.
It's really amazing how, even in the midst of conflict, these kinds of cross-cultural connections can emerge.
It is. It reminds us that these historical events are rarely one-dimensional. The story of Mahmud of Ghazni, it's about conquest, it's about destruction, but it's also about this unexpected flowering of knowledge and cultural exchange.
Right, he wasn't just a one-dimensional warlord.
He wasn't. He was a complex figure.
It's a powerful reminder that there's always more to the story, another layer to peel back. So what should we take away from this exploration of Mahmud of Ghazni's legacy? What are the key insights, especially for those prepping for the UPSC exams, or even anyone who's just fascinated by history?
I think the most important takeaway is that Mahmud of Ghazni, he was a complex and contradictory figure. He was a conqueror who left a trail of destruction, but he also was this patron of the arts and sciences who fostered a vibrant cultural exchange between the Islamic world and India.
He really challenges our assumptions about historical figures, reminds us that history is rarely black and white. It's often in those gray areas where we find the most fascinating stories. We've explored his conquests, the resistance he faced, the surprising cultural flourishing that happened under his rule.
We have, and I think for anyone studying this period, it's crucial to remember that Mahmud of Ghazni's legacy, it extends far beyond his military achievements. He left an undeniable mark on India's cultural landscape. And his story offers really valuable insights into this complex interplay of power, culture, and human ambition.
And for those listeners out there who are diving into history for the joy of learning, Mahmud's story is a reminder that the past is never truly past. It shapes our present in countless ways, and understanding it can help us better navigate the world today.
It does. And on that note, I think we're ready to move on to the final part of our deep dive into the life and legacy of Mahmud of Ghazni.
We've journeyed through Mahmud of Ghazni's conquests, explored the resistance he faced, and uncovered the unexpected cultural bloom amidst the turmoil. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And I think for anyone studying this period, especially those prepping for the UPSC exams, this nuanced view of Mahmud is absolutely essential.
Right. He's not just a name on a list of invaders.
Not at all. He pops up quite frequently in the GS1 medieval history section. And examiners, they're looking for more than just rote memorization of dates and battles. They want depth. They want analysis.
So for our listeners hitting the books, what are the key takeaways they should focus on when it comes to Mahmud of Ghazni?
Well, first and foremost, grasp the context. Think about India in the 10th and 11th centuries. You've got the Rajput kingdoms, known for their strengths, but also their fatal flaw.
Their lack of unity.
Precisely. And that disunity, it really set the stage for Mahmud's success. It wasn't just about his military prowess, it was his ability to capitalize on those existing divisions.
Right, he was a master strategist.
Exactly. Then delve into the specifics of his major campaigns, not just the battles themselves, but the political and economic consequences that followed.
Each invasion had a ripple effect.
It did. The Somnath Temple invasion, for instance, it wasn't just about loot. It had a deep symbolic impact.
It shook the confidence of many Indian rulers.
Absolutely. And then there's that fascinating layer of cultural patronage. It adds another dimension to Mahmud's legacy and forces us to see him as more than just a conqueror.
Because on the one hand, he's plundering temples, but on the other, he's attracting scholars and commissioning great works of literature. It's almost a paradox.
It is, and it's crucial for UPSC prep. Understanding al-Biruni's Kipal Hind, for example, it goes beyond knowing the title. What insights did it offer? How did it shape perceptions of India, both within the Islamic world and beyond?
So it's about connecting the dots, understanding the big picture.
Exactly. And for those of our listeners who aren't facing exams but are simply fascinated by history, there's a valuable lesson here, too. We often try to simplify the past, put people into neat boxes, hero or villain, but Mahmud challenges that.
He defies easy categorization.
Right. He forces us to confront the complexity of human nature, the potential for both destruction and creation existing within a single individual.
And that's a lesson that resonates far beyond the 11th century. It's something to think about.
It is. It makes us question our own assumptions, look for the nuances in every story.
Well said. So whether you're prepping for the UPSC exams or just diving into the past for the pure intellectual adventure, Mahmud of Ghazni's legacy has something to offer everyone.
He certainly does. He reminds us that history is a vibrant, ongoing conversation, full of surprising twists and turns. And by engaging with it thoughtfully, we gain insights that can illuminate not just the past, but also our present and our future.
Well said. And on that note, we reach the end of our deep dive into the life and legacy of Mahmud of Ghazni.
A fascinating figure indeed.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked a curiosity to explore further. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on our future explorations. We've got plenty more fascinating stories from the past to uncover.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep those minds engaged.
See you in our next deep dive.